Chapter 1. Maya stepped off the dusty train platform as the late afternoon sun dipped behind the mountains. A hush wrapped around the small town of Raventon, as though it held its breath for her arrival. She clutched the leather satchel on her shoulder, a birthday gift from her grandmother, long past, and watched her heels click against the weathered boards. Every board told a story. Every creak whispered memories she could almost taste on her tongue. With each step down Main Street, tears welled in her eyes. It had been 10 years since she left for the city, chasing a dream of becoming a teacher, of finding something bigger than herself. And yet, here she was, called home by a letter in her grandmother's precise handwriting. Ink faded, but still strong. The letter spoke of one final secret, something that needed her before the old house closed its doors for good. Her heart thundered in her chest as she turned onto Elm Avenue. The house sat at the end of the lane, its shutters hanging crookedly, paint peeling like scabs, revealing centuries of wear. The garden had grown wild, vines strangling the rose bushes her grandmother used to tend. Everything felt frozen in time. The weight of grief pressed down on her like a physical force. She paused at the gate, biting her lip. The letter's last line burned in her mind. Come at dusk, and the truth will find you. Was it superstition? A trick of nostalgia? She forced herself to breathe, stepped through the gate, and pressed the knocker. Inside, dust motes danced in the shafts of fading light. The air smelled of old paper and lavender, her grandmother's favorite scent. The parlor was as she remembered. The velvet settee, the oak bookshelf lined with leather-bound volumes, the portrait of her grandmother smiling, hands folded in lap. But on the center table lay a small wooden box Maya had never seen before, carved with strange symbols. Her pulse jumped. She set down her satchel and reached for the box. The moment her fingers brushed its lid, the lights flickered. A distant clock chimed 6 times, though no clock in the room ticked. A chill ran down her spine. She opened the box. Inside lay a single key and a folded piece of parchment. As Maya unfolded the paper, a low creak echoed behind her. She whirled around. No one there. Only the portrait, watching. The words on the parchment were written in her grandmother's hand. Trust yourself, Maya. The heart sees when the eyes cannot. She tucked the note into her pocket. Clutching the key, she climbed the stairs, determined to find the lock it fit. With each step, the floorboards groaned, the house exhaling a secret long kept. At the top, a narrow hallway stretched into darkness. One door at the far end stood slightly ajar. Maya's breath caught. She pressed forward, heart hammering, key trembling in her palm. Chapter 2. The door led to her grandmother's study. No, a room she had never entered. The walls were lined with dusty maps of the town, some centuries old, pinned with yellowed notes. A large desk sat beneath a window overlooking the overgrown garden. The keyhole in the desk drawer beckoned. Maya knelt and inserted the key. It turned with a soft click. She opened the drawer to reveal a stack of journals tied with crimson ribbon. As she lifted them out, a cold wind swept through the room, despite the closed window. Papers fluttered, and the lantern's flame danced. She untied the ribbon. The first journal's cover read, M. Everett, 1895-1932. Her grandmother's maiden name. The pages were filled with spidery handwriting, observations, sketches of people, even crude diagrams of strange devices. The tone was urgent, fearful. The entries spoke of something awakening in Raventon, something her grandmother called the sorrow at our door. A sudden thud behind her made Maya spin around. The door was closed. She hadn't heard it move. Panic rippled through her as she realized there was no doorknob, only a keyhole. She didn't have the key for this door. The lantern's light flickered again, plunging the room into near darkness. Maya's fingers fumbled along the desk for the journals. Then she darted to the window. The glass wouldn't budge. Outside, the garden seemed alive, shadows twisting between the vines. The lantern's light caught something, an elderly figure standing at the garden's edge, watching. A woman in a long, dark dress, her face hidden by a shadowed bonnet. The figure raised a hand. Maya's breath caught. She slammed into the desk, knocking the lantern to the floor. Flames roared for an instant before dying, leaving her in blackness. The woman's silhouette at the window had vanished, hands pressed against her ears to block out her pounding heartbeat. Maya dropped to her knees. She retrieved the lantern, flint and tinder, but the ember refused to spark. Her mouth was dry, thoughts spiraling. Was it grief twisting her mind? A trick of the wind? Or something real? Something that had haunted her grandmother's dreams? She forced herself to calm down. The journals were her only lead. If they spoke of an awakening, perhaps they contained the way to stop it. Light returned at last, and she fed the lantern a fresh wick. Flame bloomed. As she opened the first journal, a scrap of folded newspaper fell out. On the front, a photograph of a little girl, her grandmother as a child, standing next to a tall man whose face was scratched out. The headline read, "Missing man last seen near Elm Avenue Cemetery." Maya felt nausea twist her insides. Cemetery? That lay behind her grandmother's house. The woman at the window had worn a bonnet reminiscent of the early 20th century. Could it be her grandmother's ghost? Or a warning from beyond? Footsteps echoed on the landing. Heavy, deliberate. Someone or something was coming. Chapter 3. She snapped the journal shut and shoved it into her satchel, along with the other volumes. Each one bore the same symbols etched into the wooden box downstairs. Symbols that felt alive under her fingers. Maya backed toward the door, but it remained locked. The footsteps grew louder, closer. Grabbing the lantern, she pressed her back to the wall and forced herself to breathe. The lantern's glow revealed a figure emerging from the shadows, a man in a tailored suit, face gaunt, eyes hollow. He stepped into the light, and Maya recognized his features instantly. It was the man from the photograph, only he looked older, as if time hadn't touched him. "Madam Everett," he said, voice soft as dust. "You mustn't have read that far." Maya's breath caught. "Who are you?" she whispered. He lifted a gloved hand toward the lantern, and in his eyes she saw centuries of sorrow. "I am what remains of someone who once walked in this world," he said. "Your grandmother called me the protector. But now the sorrow that awakened calls me back to duty." "Protector? Awakened?" Maya swallowed. "What are you talking about?" "The shadow in the cemetery," he murmured. "The one who stole my life. She is loose again." His gaze pierced hers. "And so you are in danger." She wanted to run, scream, anything. But the words, "protector" and "my grandmother," held her rooted. "Why would my grandmother work with you?" He hesitated, then gestured to her satchel. "Because she loved this town more than life itself. She made a pact, bound her soul, so Raventon would endure. But now the pact weakens. The sorrow grows." Maya's mind reeled. The footsteps upstairs had stopped. Silence settled, thick and expectant.
"We must go," he said, turning away. "The journals contain the ritual to renew the pact."
She followed, heart pounding. The corridor felt endless, walls narrowing, doors on both sides, each with its own locked keyhole. At the far end, stairs spiraled down into darkness. The man paused before the staircase. "The opening begins at dusk. Soon, the boundary will fail." Maya swallowed. "What happens if it fails?" His voice was a distant wind. "The sorrow will flood the world with grief. No heart will remain unbroken." Chapter 4. They descended into the basement, a chamber lined with ancient stone and iron sconces. In the center stood a shallow pit, its floor engraved with the same symbols that appeared on the box and journals. The air was cold as breath on glass. Maya felt the hair on her arms rise. The protector knelt at the edge of the pit and opened the journals on a music stand. Candles ignited along the walls, though no one had lit them. Maya felt their warmth, but saw no flame. Symbols glowed faintly on the walls, pulsing like a heartbeat. He read aloud from the oldest journal, voice echoing. "We stand on hallowed ground, guardians of a fragile bond." The words wound around Maya like vines. She felt the sorrow shift, as though something listened from just beyond the edge of hearing. "Your role," the protector said, looking at Maya, "is vital. You must speak the final words." Her mouth felt dry. He handed her the parchment from the wooden box. The words were written in her grandmother's clear, looping hand. A vow of protection. A promise of love. Maya placed a trembling hand on the page. The pit's symbols glowed brighter, and a low hum thrummed through the chamber. Outside, a distant tolling bell marked the hour. Dusk turning to night. She took a deep breath and began to read, voice quivering. As blood runs through our mortal veins, so flows the bond unbroken. By love's eternal flame, we bind sorrow in its prison. Her voice grew steadier as she spoke. The room pulsed with energy. The journal's pages fluttered. A cold wind whipped around her, but she pressed on, heart soaring with purpose. The final words caught in her throat. And in this vow, our hearts stand guard against despair. Silence. The symbols faded. The candles winked out. The protector closed the journals. Maya exhaled, shaking. Outside, the night was still. The boundary held. The sorrow was contained once more. Chapter 5. They emerged into the silent garden, dew dulling the lantern's glow. The protector stayed behind, watching. Maya felt her legs tremble. "Thank you," she whispered, "for helping me believe." He nodded. "Your grandmother believed in you. Remember that." He turned to the statues lining the pathway. Weathered angels, faces worn smooth. "This piece is yours now." Maya stepped forward. The statues seemed to watch her, guardians of a promise. She touched a marble cheek, cold beneath her fingers, and felt gratitude pulse through her. A soft rustle behind her made her spin. A figure drifted through the gate. A young girl, eyes wide, dark hair glossy in the moonlight. Maya's breath caught. The girl looked just like her grandmother as a child. Playful smile, bright eyes. "Grandmother?" Maya asked, voice thick. The girl shook her head, lips curling. "Not yet," she whispered, "but one day." Then she ran through the arbor, disappearing into the night. Maya stood alone, the satin ribbon of her grandmother's journals still in her satchel. Tears fell unchecked. The weight of loss and the warmth of love intertwined in her chest. She whispered, "Good night, Grandma." Chapter 6. The next morning, Maya awoke in the study. Sunbeams slicing through dusty air. She felt different, changed, as if the pact had woven itself into her own soul. On the desk lay a final letter from her grandmother, delivered by the protector before he vanished. Dear Maya, it began, by reading these words, you have become the keeper of our town's heart. This house will remain yours, but only if you love it fiercely, as I did. Do not fear the sorrow, for it is part of life's balance. Embrace joy, even in darkness. I am always with you. Maya pressed the letter to her chest, tears blurring the words. She rose, determined. The journals were hers to safeguard, the house hers to tend. Outside, Raventon stirred. A gentle breeze carried the scent of lavender and rose. Birds sang in the ancient oaks. The town awoke, unaware of the night's battle and the price paid. Maya locked the study door, hiding the key in her satchel. She knew she would return to the city, to her students, to the life she had built. But part of her would remain here, rooted in the pact of love and protection.
Chapter 7.
Weeks passed. Maya balanced her city life with visits to Raventon, restoring the house, trimming the garden. Neighbors greeted her with curious smiles and stories of old, rumors of ghosts, of lost loves, of the house at the end of Elm Avenue. Maya listened, heart swelling with connection. At night, she would read the journals, tracing her grandmother's journey, marveling at her courage. Sometimes she imagined the protector's soft footsteps on the stairs, or the little girl's laughter in the garden. Fear had turned to comfort. One evening, as she closed the front gate, a storm rolled in. Lightning split the sky. Rain battered the roof and windows. Maya's heart clenched. Storm was said to weaken the boundary. She rushed inside, lantern in hand, and heard a voice calling her name. Soft, distant, like a memory. "Grandma," she whispered. The house sighed. Maya set the lantern on the hall table and followed the voice upstairs. It led her to the locked bedroom, the one she hadn't dared enter. The key in her satchel throbbed. She fit it into the lock. The door swung open to reveal a nursery untouched by time. A cradle rocking gently, toys scattered on a faded rug, a mobile twirling in the lantern light. On the wall hung a portrait of a child with raven hair, her grandmother. Maya gasped. The room felt alive. A lullaby filled the air. Maya felt tears burn. She stepped into the room, heart aching and soaring. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything." And in that moment, the storm outside stalled. A warmth blossomed, as though a grandmother's arms wrapped around her, and Maya knew she was truly home. Chapter 8. Months later, Maya stood before her class of young students, reading from her grandmother's journals. Their eyes widened with wonder as she spoke of courage, love, and a promise that binds us all. Outside, the spring sunshine warmed the courtyard. After class, a student tugged her sleeve. "Miss Everett?" Is this story real? Maya smiled, the journals safe in her satchel. She looked past the school windows, imagining the house on Elm Avenue, the garden bright with roses. Real, she said softly, as real as the love that holds us together. That night, as she drifted to sleep in her city apartment, Maya felt a presence at her side, a gentle warmth, a comforting weight on the blanket. She closed her eyes and whispered, "Good night, Grandma." And somewhere, far away, a lantern glowed in the study of a house on Elm Avenue, its flame steady against the darkness, guarding the bond between heart and home. Chapter 9. Years passed, and Maya became known not only as a dedicated teacher, but as a storyteller whose voice carried magic. She returned to Raventon every season, planting new roses, tending the house, reading the journals by lantern light. The townspeople spoke of how the garden bloomed brighter, how laughter echoed where once footsteps creaked. On the anniversary of her grandmother's passing, Maya held a vigil in the garden. Candles flickered along the pathway, and the community gathered. Children, elders, neighbors sharing stories of love, loss, and hope. Maya read the final entry in the last journal, her voice ringing clear. And when sorrow comes, let it remind you to cherish joy. For in love, we find our greatest strength. The candle's flames danced in the night breeze. Maya looked up at the sky, tearful and grateful. "Thank you," she whispered. A soft breeze rustled the rose petals, as though in reply. Chapter 10. Maya grew old, but the pact remained unbroken. She passed the journals and the key to her granddaughter, another Maya, on her 10th birthday. The girl's eyes shone with wonder as she traced the symbols on the box. "Will I be the next keeper?" she asked. Maya nodded, voice tender with pride. "You will. Remember, love binds us across time, stronger than sorrow." That night, as the girl drifted to sleep in the nursery her grandmother once knew, Maya watched from the doorway. The lantern's light flickered, and the roses' scent drifted on the breeze. All was well. The boundary held, and the love of 3 generations stood guard against the darkness. A promise unfading, a story eternal.